Good morning, my friends. Good morning. Good morning. Let me just get set up here. Trying to get set up also on TikTok. Yay. Happy Wednesday to everybody. It's Wednesday, right? Yes. Happy hump day. Um, all right, going live on TikTok too in three, two, one. Good morning, friends. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Today I'm talking about metaphysical spiritual science, metaphysics. We'll get into it. We'll talk about what it is. Why should you care? You don't have to care, but um, I care, so that's why that's why I'm talking about it. I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. It's a little bit of a gray day here. I'm in Maine. In my that's a little hot, isn't it? I really like my camera is reversed on here, but it actually says "Stay golden." Stay golden. It's my reminder to stay golden. Hope everybody is doing well this fine Wednesday morning. And I see people joining up today. I'm talking about metaphysics. What do we mean by that? From a spiritual perspective. There's also the philosophy of that's called metaphysics, and that sort of thing. But talking specifically about spirituality. And I will say this, that I am very soon, I have to sign some paperwork and stuff, but I am very soon about to be ordained as a metaphysical minister, which is uh, non denominational. So, I'll be able to do weddings and things like that. But also, I'm probably going to do something in the form of a ministry, a metaphysical ministry, where people can just come in and we'll meditate together and that sort of thing. So, when I talk about when I use the word metaphysical, what do people think of, right? Often they'll think about, like a metaphysical bookstore. They'll think about, tarot cards and books on spirituality and esoteric stuff and the occult and all of that. And that is sort of wrapped under this big umbrella of metaphysics, right? And that's fine. That's one way to use it. But the way that I use it, I don't know what that sound was. The way that my education, my background, my training, my meditations, all these things, the way that they sort of define metaphysics is the science or the art or the quest for the prime source, the original source. Now, if you're a religious person, that original source you might name God. I I prefer often to use the term source or source consciousness or original consciousness, but there are many, many names, right? Many names of God, many names of for source consciousness. Brahman is one in Sanskrit, and um, all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of different names out there. Even in the Bible, the Christian Bible, there are many, many names for God used, right? So you have Yahweh as the one we all might know about, but Yahweh in, I think it's the book of Exodus, tells Moses that, hey, look, you knew me by the name El before, and El is a Canaanite sun god. Interestingly enough, I'll talk a little bit about this today too. El had a wife that, not in the Bible, is in the Canaanite books. But good morning to you. El had a wife named Asherah, and I'm going to talk about the divine masculine and feminine principles and how they relate to everything. So, when I look at metaphysical cosmology, right, there's a lot of big SAT words there. Um, which is looking at the source of things, how the universe exists, and that kind of thing. What I like to do, and even when I'm looking at shamanism or any other really specific practices, um, good morning to everyone who's just joining as well. If it's morning where you are, if it's not, good whatever time of day it is for you. I like to look at what different cultures, different systems, different religions, different languages have that are in common. And sometimes you have to look before metaphor, right? Mythology is metaphor. And very often we look at mythology as well, they're trying to explain natural phenomena. Yes, there is that aspect of it. That is the exoteric explanation of mythology. The esoteric explanation of mythology is that it is metaphoric information that's describing spiritual and cosmological principles. And so you can look underneath a lot of belief systems and see a lot of the same things. So, from my perspective, from my education and my practice and all of these things, um, the the prime source consciousness or God or whatever you want to call it, begin. So, in the beginning, right, the earth was void, right? That's the biblical thing. In Kabbalah, which is a form of Jewish mysticism, you have this, everything begins with this field of endless light, the Ein Sof Or, endless light, light without end. One source consciousness. In Taoism, you have the same thing. You have the emptiness, right? In Norse mythology, you have Ginnunga gap, which is this gap between worlds. There are worlds. There's the world of ice and the world of fire, and the fire starts to melt the ice, and that's how kind of the world is created, right? And Ymir, the giant, which is the Ymir is a hermaphrodite, is both male and female, is the first, kind of the first being. Although there's a cow, a Dumbla, which who knows where the cow came from. But this is all mythology, and the mythology is explaining spiritual and cosmological principles, right? So in many of these systems, in many of these spiritual systems, the first there is some kind of void or field of light. We could call it source consciousness. Then something happens, right? Something happens. And I'm going to use my own metaphor in a minute, which is how I describe things in my head that helps me make sense out of it, and may help you make sense out of it. Something happens, and this nothingness divides into two things. So you have fire and ice, or you have male, and most commonly you have masculine and feminine principles. So the God Yahweh in the Bible tells Moses, "You knew me by the name El before." When you know. So the Canaanite god El is a masculine god. The divine masculine principle is a sun god. And El had a wife named Asher or Asherah. I think it's Asherah, actually. Asherah. Yeah, the divine masculine, divine feminine. That has been removed from biblical references, but it is in the Canaanite system. And in the Bible, the God Yahweh, which is the God of the Bible, tells Moses, "You knew me before by the name El." So one could read that as the same being, the masculine principle. So in many of these stories, we start with this sort of Godhead, which is neither masculine nor feminine. It's just sort of pure consciousness beyond comprehension. I like to call this source consciousness or source. Some people might say God mind or something along those lines, right? Let's see. Yeah, here's this person that always comes on here and goes, fiction. Yeah, I'm talking about stories right now. I don't know, like, uh, interesting that this person chooses to come on and troll quite a bit on here. I'm going to ignore for now. I can't figure out how to boot somebody off, but oh, block account. There we go. Blocked. Oh, that's fun. Okay. Um, uh, I don't have time for that, and it's just a distraction. And it's not that I'm not open to conversation and debate, but this person has repeatedly come on my broadcast for whatever reason and just going like, "You're just making stuff up." Um, I'm not. You could think that somebody else made these stories up, but I'm just telling stories that come from before, well before me, thousands of years before me. So I'm not making anything up here. Um, so the Canaanite god El and Asher comes as a pair. In Kabbalah, you have the field of endless light that comes down into uh, Kether, which means crown or the Godhead, and then splits off into masculine and feminine principles. And that's where you get the tree of life that comes down, that eventually comes together and forms the physical universe. That's one way of interpreting it. You have in Taoism, you have this emptiness that gathers into the Tao, which is the one thing out of which everything emanates. And then that splits into masculine and feminine principles, yin and yang, right? So in many, many systems, we kind of see the same thing, right? We kind of see this source consciousness. So the way that the metaphor, the way that I use to describe this metaphysically is imagine before everything, before time and space, before the Big Bang, before all of that, there is but one thing. And that one thing is conscious, and it probably is consciousness. And if you are just endless consciousness and you decide one day, I want to experience things, I want to have experiences, I want to figure out, um, I want to experience myself from different perspectives, from different viewpoints. What you have to do then is to differentiate. You have to individualize yourself. You have to form things that you can experience. As a painter, I look at a canvas and I'm like, I want to have a painting there. I need to slap some paint on the canvas. I can have the picture of the painting in my head, but until I put the paint to the canvas, there's no painting, right? So um, imagine source consciousness or God or the Godhead or whatever you wish to refer to it by as this beam of infinite white light passing through space. Now, this is a metaphor, right? The beam of white light passing through space. And if you were to observe this beam of white light passing through space, you view it from the side, you would see nothing. It doesn't matter how bright the light is, you wouldn't see it unless it reflected off of something, and the beam, the photons that it reflected, if it hit some dust in the air, there's no air, but if it hit some dust or an object or something reflected back into your eyes, you would witness nothing. So this source consciousness is this like infinite beam of pure white light that contains everything, every possibility, right? White light contains every possible color of light. Everything that we see is made up of different frequencies of white light, right? And so if you wanted to experience different aspects of this white light, this source, you would put a prism, and you could put a prism in front of this white light and split it off into all of the different colors of the rainbow, right? And even, if you had a white light that contained the entire spectrum, there would be stuff in there that you couldn't see, infrared and ultraviolet and X-rays and radio waves and all kinds of stuff, right? You would split this off, and these individual beams are like our individuated consciousness, right? You can think of yourself, your own consciousness, as a colorful beam of individuated source light. You are never disconnected from that source consciousness. You can't be. If I were to say, okay, let's imagine I'm the red light coming out of this prism, and I want to disconnect from source, and I put a piece of cardboard in front of the red light, say, I don't want this source, I don't want to be connected to the source anymore, the red light disappears, right? It goes away. You cannot exist without being connected to this infinite source of consciousness, right? So that in metaphysics, there is unity consciousness, there is one consciousness, but we are experiencing it as our individuated beams of light split off after the prism and bouncing off a bunch of stuff in the room. Very often, as human beings, we identify with this body mind, right? I'm this guy. I'm this guy with the red glasses. I'm this guy with the eyebrows. I'm this guy with the funky hair this morning. Um, I'm this. But our consciousness, even scientifically, we can show these days that consciousness is non-local, meaning it doesn't just exist in a spot. It feels that way. It's an illusion. It's a useful illusion, right? Einstein said reality is an illusion. What we think of as reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one, meaning we live in it. It doesn't seem to go away. It seems to stay in place, right? So Einstein said reality is illusion. Schrodinger, Erwin Schrodinger, who came up with Schrodinger's cat, right? You might have heard of that, the quantum physicist, said the number of consciousnesses in the universe is one. This is a guy who was plumbing the depths of the universe from a quantum physics perspective, coming to the conclusion that we are all the same consciousness. So from a metaphysical perspective, consciousness, let's talk about what consciousness is for a minute. Consciousness is the ability, is the field in which experience arises. Now, scientifically, consciousness is, they call consciousness first person subjective experience, meaning I feel like I'm me and I feel like I'm having an experience. That's consciousness. And by the way, we don't know where it comes from. We don't know where science-wise, we don't know where it comes from. We don't know, it cannot be localized to the brain, and it appears to be non-local, and it appears to be not as time-oriented as we experience it. So they can connect you to a machine, to like an EEG machine, and show you pictures on a screen and measure your brainwaves, measure your responses to those pictures. And they can show you pictures that are, happy pictures. They can show you pictures that are disturbing, like pictures of violence and stuff. Your brain will show a pattern of disturbance, something like a quarter to a half a second before they show you a picture of disturbing content. That breaks that breaks everything we know about causality, traveling forward in time. You respond to stimuli before they happen, at least internally. Why? Because your consciousness is not bound to time and space the way we think it is. We think it is because we have an ego. We think it is because we exist. We use time and space, but we can experience consciousness outside of time and space. It requires metaphysical practice, meditation, or shamanic journeying, or other types of things. Really expensive, dangerous drugs. Don't do drugs, my friends. But there is, the Federal Reserve has joined. Welcome, Federal Reserve. Can you have any free samples? You ever go to a bank and ask for free samples? Right? So anyway, oh, thanks. I don't think I came up with that. I think I probably got that from my grandfather. My grandfather was a real wise ass, and I get that from him. That's part of my personality. So we know, we can scientifically prove a number of things about our consciousness that we can't quite explain yet scientifically, except by saying that our consciousness seems to be non-local, meaning it is not just, it's not inside our brain. Our brain is a receiver and transmitter of consciousness, like a radio, but our consciousness isn't just here. Our consciousness responds to things before they happen. So causality linear time-wise causality seems to break down, proven scientifically to the degree that you can prove something scientifically, right? Beyond chance of things happening with repeatable scientific study. Your consciousness also affects physical reality, has been proven scientifically. Look up the um, Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. Dean Radin has done a ton of experimentation around here. Yeah, so before channeling, you are a radio. I think so. I consider our brain is a receiver of our consciousness. Our consciousness is not just located in our brain. In fact, even biologically, they find neuropeptides in almost every cell in the body. What are those doing there? And they find that the vast majority of our serotonin is actually produced by our gut, and they have called the gut. And this is this is not metaphysical. This is physics. This is anatomy. This is they've called the gut the second brain. People have been saying forever, I have a gut feeling about this, right? I have a feeling in my gut about this. That's an absolutely real phenomena that in the past, I don't know, 20 years or so, scientists started looking at. There's a giant bundle of nerves in the middle of your gut. We so often identify consciousness with the brain. The brain has structures that are useful for consciousness, like the prefrontal cortex, which makes us pretty human, and like the visual cortex that processes. So a lot of our sensory input, a lot, not all, is coming in through our sense organs and being processed by our brain. So in that way, our brain is allowing certain things to arise in our consciousness. But we are conscious of things that are outside of our sensory organs, and that has been proven experimentally over and over again. It's repeatable. But it's a challenge for science because they want to explain consciousness as electrical activity in the brain, but they can't, and it's not. It's not. And so then now what will happen if something is not the vagus nerve, yeah, for the nervous system. The vagus nerve is responsible for quite a lot of stuff. We've learned a lot about trauma in the vagus nerve, right? A lot of trauma is stored in the body. The vagus nerve, people are using vagus nerve stimulation and that sort of thing for healing trauma. Um, uh, there's polyvagal theory. There are all these branches of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, it's called vagus because vagus is a Latin word that means like to wander or wandering, because the vagus nerve is this huge nerve that goes through your neck and then goes all the way through your body and affects your organs and actually winds up, like, I think, in your knee or your leg, somewhere in your leg. So it goes almost through the whole body. Yes. Yeah. So trauma is stored, and people will repeat traumatic patterns. In my opinion, people will repeat traumatic patterns to hopefully heal from them, but it doesn't always work out that way, right? To process and heal from them. But yeah, it's stored. A lot of trauma stored in the body. Um, in shamanism, we call that PTSD. The symptoms of PTSD and the effect of trauma. We call that soul loss, and we see that as a division of the energy. Oh, good morning to you. Set a notification and still almost managed to miss it. Well, you didn't. You didn't miss it. You're here. um, you made it. You made it. And the replays are always available. Like, you can go on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel, and there's always a replay. Anyway, if you miss it, but it's nice to be able to chat with people live. Um, you may ask what kind of shaman I am. I'm not allowed to call myself a shaman in my school. I can't say. I say I'm a shamanic practitioner or shamanic teacher. Yeah, my YouTube is linked on my Facebook page. I think yeah, for sure. You can. I mean, my YouTube is linked to my website, and I think you can get there from Instagram. You can either get to my website or Linktree or whatever, and find all of my YouTube information. Um, so um, I learned core shamanism, and I am practiced in and I would say I'm a learner in Norse shamanism. So yeah, feel free if you want to learn more about shamanism, feel free to reach out. And I do often talk about shamanism here and stuff. I'm just happen to be talking about metaphysics today. So, but thank you for dropping in, and thank you for following me, and feel free to reach out. Happy to happy to chat. And I'm always happy to chat about shamanism. And oh, good. I'm glad you like the metaphysics. Yeah, yeah, I do too. It's why I have a degree in metaphysics, and I'm working on a master's degree in metaphysics at the moment. I'm not very far, but I'm working on it. Working on it. I have to write a thesis, so I'm working on my thesis, my friends, and my thesis is going to be on spiritual alchemy as a path to unity consciousness. So, um, at least I find that interesting. So hopefully other people do. Maybe I'll turn it into a book afterwards. We'll see. We'll see. If anybody knows any publishers, any good metaphysical publishers out there, uh, let me know. Although I have a publisher in mind to pitch the book to, and I know people who publish with that author. So um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens from there. But so I'm working on that. And anyway, back to forget what I was talking about now. Um, back to metaphysics, back to consciousness. So we cannot separate ourselves from source consciousness. That would be like putting a piece of cardboard in front of the prism or behind the prism and blocking out the red light. The red light stops if we are cut off. We feel cut off from source. We feel distant from good morning, my friend. Happy to see you. Happy to see you. We often live in a space of where we feel cut off from source. We feel disconnected from God or source or whatever term you want to use. We feel like we're not part of it all. We feel alone. And I understand that. That's what our ego does. Our ego exists for a reason. I don't believe in, yeah, the separation is an illusion. It is illusory. If you cannot be separated from source, even if you wanted to be, you can find your way back to that source consciousness, and you can invite more of that source consciousness into you to flow through you. And the more you connect with source, the more you identify with source, the more you invite source consciousness to be a part of your day-to-day experience, allow it to run your life, the more you're projecting it into the world. You show up more as a spiritual being. Um, oh, thank you so much. When I was 16, I was run over by a truck. Oh my goodness. I'm glad you are still here with us. And the doctor said I had damage to my vagus nerve, but it wouldn't be a problem. 32 years later, the lie detector test determined that was a lie. I cannot imagine damage to the vagus nerve not causing problems. It affects everything. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. Love the language of your thesis. Thank you. Hopefully the reviewers who review it love the language of my thesis as well. I don't. I have successfully defended a thesis before, so I actually have 2 master's degrees already, and for whatever reason, I'm going for a third one. I'm a lifelong learner. It's not about the degrees to me, although it's nice. It's nice to be sort of like feel like there's an end to something that I'm working on, like a goal to reach. Not an end. I'm never going to stop learning, but it's nice to like, okay, I've learned a whole lot about this enough that some people have recognized that I've learned a whole lot about that, and maybe I can move on to the next thing after that. Maybe I'll get a PhD. Who knows? Someday. That's a lot of work, though. Perpetual student. Yes. Yeah. 3 is a good number. Nikola Tesla said, if you understand the secrets of 369, you understand the universe. I'm still trying to figure that out, but there are 369 practices where if you have an intention You write it down 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, and 9 times before you go to bed. And it's supposed to accelerate what you're trying to manifest. I haven't tried that. Maybe I will. I have maybe I'll grab a notebook and try to manifest. So, oh, it has to do with the Merkaba. Yeah, I should learn more about the Merkaba. That keeps coming up for me. And somebody, I was interviewed. I think I'm going to be in a documentary this year. It'll be a series on dreaming. Had to fly out to Chicago and be interviewed. And the interviewer like had a list of questions that he wanted to ask me, but then started like asking me about everything, and he's like, explain the Merkaba, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, well, it's these two interlocking pyramids, and some people meditate and use that as a vehicle for journeying, but beyond that, I need to learn more about it. So if anybody has any good books on Merkaba or any resources, yeah, sacred geometry is really, really cool. But I need to learn more about Merkaba because it keeps coming up. It came up for me. Something came up yesterday, and then somebody mentioned it today. So folks, let me give you a lesson that I have learned the hard way. I am a hard-headed person, and a lot of my spiritual lessons I refer to as a slap in the face with a wet fish by the universe, right? It's like the universe, spirit, God, source will send you messages. And sometimes if you're hard-headed like me, I don't always pay attention. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool message. And then the universe will turn the volume up a little bit, right? Like, oh, okay, here it is, and then turn the volume up and turn the volume up, and eventually the universe will get tired of turning the volume up and then create a crisis in your life, and it'll give you a slap across the face with a wet fish. Maybe someday I'm going to write a book. It'll be called "The Slap Across the Face with a Wet Fish" by the universe. I don't know if a publisher would accept that title. I might have to self-publish, but that's my explanation for a lot of things that have happened in my spiritual life. But yeah, I ignored messages from the universe for years and had almost until it affected my health in a really significant way. Do I have access to the Gaia network? Oh yeah. Okay, yes, I do. I do have a subscription to Gaia, which is such a cool thing. It's really funny to me. It's really interesting. They have everything from they started out as yoga, like lots of yoga. There's lots of like yoga classes and stuff on there, and then there's a whole bunch of like conspiracy theory stuff on the other side of it, and then in between there's a lot of really cool spiritual. They call it a nudge, but yeah. Oh yeah, well, it'll nudge you. It'll nudge you. And the universe will give you messages that are a little bit soft in the beginning, but then I find, at least in my experience, the volume gets turned up to a point. It goes to 11, as they say in Spinal Tap, one of my favorite movies. But it goes to 11. When it gets to 11, in shamanism, which is my main practice, there is the idea of shamanic crisis. And in many shamanic cultures, you have to have gone through some kind of crisis to even go into training. You have to be like hit by lightning or have a near-death experience or a life-altering experience or something. Same, not that I'm hard-headed, it's that I trusted everyone but myself. Very common, very common. Then I have to sit back and watch the message go to others, or the universe borrows your wet fish to slap me too. Yeah, the universe has a lot of wet fishes. Would an awakening count? Yeah, it certainly can. I don't. So I'm not of the mind that. Here's my opinion about shamanism as a practitioner, somebody who's been doing it for over 10 years and been in training forever and will continue training in shamanism for the rest of my life. Shamanism is not a path for everyone. I don't proselytize. I talk about shamanism if people are interested in learning about it. And I teach shamanism to people who are interested in practicing shamanism. But it is not a path for everyone. It is hard. If you go deep into shamanism, it is going to shake your life up. Right. We do not choose it. It chooses us. I absolutely identify with that. I absolutely identify with this path choosing me. Um, and I was really, again, I'm hard-headed, was really resistant to everything. I would go, "Oh, you keep getting fish slaps about it." Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that'll happen. So I was at the point where I got so sick that my life was in danger. Not a lot of I don't talk about the extent of it too much, but I was very sick. I had lost 60 pounds in like under 2 months, like, not eating, not sleeping. Had a bunch of blood tests done, and they were like, "You got to do something about this." Oh, good morning. Good morning. Yeah. So crisis, just one, nay, several. That's how you found the channel. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through crises to find this channel, but yes, it can be multiple. I have been through. We would refer to those as initiations. It's an initiation if you come out of the crisis having gained something at the end, right? That's how initiation works in shamanism. You can go through ceremonies, you can go through, blessings, all of that stuff, but real initiation is done by spirit. And this is why I say shamanism isn't a path for everyone, because it'll shake your life up. I went through, during my shamanic training, I went through divorce and went through lots of huge life changes. Not a gentle approach throws you in. And I was really resistant in the beginning in my training, to just about everything. So I was doing training. I started out in an apprenticeship. So I dove in head first, and my teacher was like, "Okay, we're going to work on divination." And I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do divination. I'm not interested in fortune telling. I'm not interested in reading tea leaves. I'm not interested in any of that stuff." And I think I was worried, I was scared that I would give people bad information and they would act on it and it would be harmful or whatever. And then I started doing divination because my teacher told me to. And it turns out it's one of the things I'm really good at, and one of the things I really love and I really enjoy. Yeah, that fear is really, really common. We often have imposter syndrome, particularly in the spiritual world. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, yep, yep. So you understand. You understand. Divination is a huge responsibility. Absolutely. Yes, thank you. I realized my magic. I think I'm still stepping into it. I think, I don't think it's a path that sort of ended, but so there were lots of things like this on my path. Like, my teacher said, we're gonna do dream work. We're gonna work and do dream interpretation, dream work, shamanically, all this stuff. Intention matters. Yeah, absolutely. Intention drives the bus. Um, I usually, I don't want to do dream work. I'm not interested in people's dreams. This is, just whatever. I don't know why. I don't know why I ever was like that nowadays. And then I did dream work and I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. My very first experience of doing dream work. I got to work with my teacher's assistant. I journeyed into her dreams. It was completely immersive. I was able to I did a 10-minute journey and I was able to talk about her dream for like 45 minutes while she furiously scribbled notes. And then it winds up like it became it was a real strength of mine, doing dream work, shamanic dream work. And for about 2 years, I had a spot on the radio, morning drive once a week, where this radio show here um, would call me and listeners would call in with their dreams and I would do dream interpretation. It was very cool. Um, Yeah, yes, yeah. You have to trust what comes through. Yes. So that's a big lesson. And surrender is a huge lesson, right? So for me, if I do divination work for people, which I do all the time, like every client I take on, if I'm doing healing sessions or whatever, I'm doing divination work. I call it a diagnostic, but I'm trying to determine what it is that needs to happen. Um, And so they um, the lesson that I learned is just to deliver the information and to do as very little interpretation as possible on that. With dreams, it's hard because they're actually asking you to do interpretation. But if we do divination work for somebody, I'll give you an example. And I don't give personal information of clients or students away ever. So I'll say that I had a client in another country. I have a client. I have lots of clients in other countries, but I have clients and students everywhere. And so a client in Scandinavia, and during diagnostic journey, I had a vision of turtles swimming around her. And I'm like, I don't know what this means, and it would be bogus if I tried to say what I thought it meant, right? So I told her, um, you know, I don't know if this means anything to you, which is how I couch a lot of things. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I see turtles. And she kind of rocked back and she's like, my grandmother collected turtles and even had a pet turtle, and she passed away last year. And um, she, in where I live in Scandinavia, nobody collects turtles and nobody has pet turtles, but she was different, and this and that and this and that and this and that. So many times in divination, I get information that makes no sense to me whatsoever. But it really lands for the client that I'm working with, and like it means something to them, like it's extremely meaningful to them. And I have no way of knowing that information. Now I have, and I'm not like this is. I try to couch what I'm talking. I don't want to sound. I don't ever want to sound like I'm bragging. That's a big no-no in spirituality. Hubris is asking for the universe to knock you down a peg. So I don't ever like to talk about that I'm bragging, but information has come through from spirit that has been absolutely uncanny. Like I have no reason to know this information, and it can be fact checked like 100% information, and that's how I know like the information's not coming from me. I'm not imagining it. I'm not making it up. I couldn't make it up. I couldn't, whatever. So, as an example, I was able to one time, somebody was asking me, a friend of mine who lives in a foreign country, also in Scandinavia. I have a lot of connections with Scandinavia. Was asking me about where to look for a new place to live and where to look for a job. And I was actually able to draw a map of the city that she lived in, and of a part of the city that she lived in, and put things exactly where they were east in relation to each other, major features of the city. I've never been to the city, don't know that I've ever seen pictures of this city. I had to look it up afterwards. I knew there was something to the east. I knew what was to the west. I knew like what the surface of the street was like in this area. I knew there were modern buildings here and old buildings here, and there was a fountain here, and the functions of the buildings. Like this is an official building. Like that's really weird for me because I don't think of myself as particularly psychic. Is it like dream walking? I don't. I'm not really familiar with the term dream walking, but doing shamanic dream work, you do actually, yeah, you actually step into the person's dream. So, a person describes. I don't always do it that way. Um, Depends, but if I have time, I will actually journey and step into the person's dream. And I can't tell you like how much information comes through there. Dreams are rich with meaning. Um, Oh, I'm glad you listened to me. Yeah, on the queue, that was the radio station that when I would do these, they were really funny because they like were really short, so I'd only have like a few minutes with each person who called in. So I didn't have time. I didn't actually. So when I was doing that, when I was doing dream interpretation on the radio, I didn't have time to journey because I had like a minute or two with each person who called in, and then it was morning drive, and the hosts are just really great people. And I'll tell like anybody who listened to that, if you wonder what they're like in real life, they're exactly like they are on the radio. Like when they would like call and talk to me, when we weren't on the air, they're exactly like that in real life. So um, it was a fun experience. sometimes serious stuff would come through, and it was the challenge for me was not just in doing it dream interpretation in a really short period of time like that where I don't have time to really get into it with somebody, but sometimes somebody would call in and I would get like, this is some trauma expressing itself or that sort of thing. I do channel. Yeah, I do. I'm trained in channeling. And remote viewing, I'm somewhat familiar with. I've tried the remote viewing protocol and had a little bit of success with it. I would love to go through some remote viewing training sometime. So, um, I'm trying a week to figure out why I dreamed I was trying to ride a whale. Is that something I could journey about if I feel it's important? Which is another question I have. Two-part question. How do you know if something is journey worthy? Can you bug your helpers with too much frivolous stuff? This is a fantastic question. I say journey about everything. Um, your helping spirits don't live in a time-bound world we in the same way that we do. And so you're like, oh, you're just, you're asking me stuff too frequently or whatever. I have never experienced that. And I would absolutely journey about dreams. Um, oh, yeah, that would be interesting. Write a book on the dream journeys. Maybe I will sometime. That'd be cool. I would have to get it would either have to be my own dreams or I would have to get permission from the people I would journey for. But yeah, I mean that's definitely something. Thank you. That's a kind of a cool idea. I appreciate you sharing that with me. So I think almost everything is journey worthy. What I avoid in journeying for myself is I try to get information from journeys, but I don't try to let journeying tell me how to live my life. You never give up your free will, even to your helping spirits. If your helping spirits are like, you're doing something spiritual, you're doing a journey, and they're like, I had a student one time, I have a student in Hawaii, and I was like, oh, journey to this thing in the middle world, journey over here, or whatever. And her helping spirit showed up and was like, don't go there. And I was like, well, that's a safety thing. Like, don't go there, don't journey over there. They know more than I do. And pay attention to them. If your helping spirits contradict something I say, listen to them. I'm just a dude you know I'm just a guy, but I would journey about your dreams. Absolutely, that is journey worthy. And ask for interpretation. So I never and this is what I teach my students as well. When I ask questions in journey, when I go in journey to ask questions of spirits, I never ask should I, right? Because I'm not giving up my free will, and also I don't really necessarily know what the answer means. So for example, like, should I walk down this alley alone in the middle, this dark alley in the middle of the night? Um, I do teach classes from time to time. Mostly, I teach one-on-one mentoring. It looks like I'm going to offer a live in-person class. Fingers crossed if it works out. But it'd be here in Maine. In maybe July or September. I'm still trying to work out the details. It actually a church, very cool. A Unity church contacted me, and I spoke with their reverend recently, and it turns out we align in a lot of ways, and they try to bring different modalities in to teach. And so she's like, "Would you be interested in teaching a class on shamanism here?" And I'm like, I can, if I am given the opportunity to speak about shamanism, I always will. But we talked about maybe teaching a 2-day intro class. But I do offer classes, all kinds of classes online and stuff. I teach sometimes through Learn It Live, and not always shamanism. I teach different classes, but mostly shamanism. I teach through mentoring one-on-one. But you can find more information about that online, and all of my classes are listed on my website as well. I have stuff coming up. Some of them are, a lot of classes I teach are free. A lot of the Learn It Live classes are free, which is cool. They pay me to teach, but they don't charge the students anything. So I really love that, and I love doing that for them, and I love teaching. So part of why I do this. Um, So I was talking about dreams. Oh, so yeah, so I would dream. So I don't ask should I question. Should I walk down this alley alone in the middle of the night? Well, I should first of all be able to figure that out on my own, right? I should be able to say that seems like a really dangerous thing to do. I shouldn't do that. But also, I don't know, my helping spirits might be like, well, this will be an initiation for you. Yeah, if you walk down this alley, it's very likely that you'll get mugged. And, you've never been mugged before. So that'll be, I actually have been mugged before, but that will be a great lesson for you to learn. So, yeah, go for it. You should do that. So I don't ask should I questions. What I ask are informational questions. So, for example, if you're journeying, if you know how to journey or you're talking to spirit, a better kind of question is what would it be like if I, and get information about it, and then make your own decisions based on information you get from spirit and information that you get from ordinary reality. Shamans always walk in both worlds. You have to have a foot in the spirit world and a foot in the real world. It's not like when we practice, we live our life with our head in the clouds. That is not the way it is. It's our job to become channels for spirit. We are supposed to be able to move in both directions. We're supposed to bring spirit into this world. It's called becoming the hollow bone. You're supposed to do your own work so you become a clearer channel for spirit. And so when I teach, or particularly when I do healing sessions, it is my main job to get out of the way, to get my ego out of the way, right? But also, I have to stay grounded. I'm supposed to stay here. I've got this body and this mind for this time being to do stuff with. I'm doing stuff with this body and this mind. I'm talking to you guys, right? If I were just like locked in my closet meditating, I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't be having this interaction. So that's, something to think about. And if you're practicing, keep that in mind, that it's important to be grounded. It's really easy. It's tempting. I don't know if it's really easy, but it's tempting to get a big head when you do spiritual work. It's called spiritual egotism, right? That's why I try to couch, like when I talk about things like, oh, I got this really cool information when I was doing divination journey for somebody. Um, I try to always couch it by saying that information is not coming from me. I'm just the messenger. I'm just allowing the information to come through me. That's it. That's my whole role. The information's coming from spirit. I don't have that information. I'm not particularly special, and I'm not particularly smart. I'm not particularly talented or gifted or psychic or any of those things. Yeah, if I'm in my closet, spirit is going to open the door holding the fish. Are you ready for your slap? Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, that's right. So people who are mediums, people who are channels, people who are psychic, again, you're getting that information from spirit. You're tuning in. You are getting better. Like when you practice, when you learn, you're getting better at tuning your consciousness right into different realities, or into, so that you can be able to speak with spirit, hear spirit, see spirit, interact with spirit, bring spiritual energy through into the world. But again, like, do your best. Do your best. It's part of the reason why I tell people I cannot, in my tradition, I'm not allowed to call, not allowed, but they say don't call yourself a shaman. Other, like, people can say, you are my shaman, or John is my shaman, or whatever. That's fine. But I don't, I refer to myself as a teacher, shamanic teacher, or shamanic practitioner, which is what I do. I'm teaching shamanism, or I'm practicing shamanism, or shamanic healer. But part of the reason for that is it's considered elevating one's ego to give oneself that title, um, right? And so remaining humble is, is not just a good thing for the people around you, which it is, but it's good for you. Like, if I've gotten too big for my britches, I don't know, is that an expression people use in other places? That's something like, I grew up in Maine, and Maine had, I didn't realize Maine has all of these expressions that nobody else has, until I went to college in Boston. I went to college in Boston, and I was like, oh yeah, out in the pucker brush, They're like, pucker brush. What the heck is pucker brush? I'm like, like out in the scrub, out in the wilds, out in the like, what? I'm like, oh, I didn't realize like I had all these terms that like my grandparents used and stuff that nobody else is using. So it's pretty funny. Um, yes, yeah, it is hard to nail humble, to nail humble. It is hard to stay humble when you nail things for other people. Yeah, pucker brush is pretty funny. I, Maine has got some funny sayings. Too big for your britches. Okay, so it's not just Maine, maybe just New England, Massachusetts, Rhode Island thing too. Yeah, big for your britches means like you have a lot of hubris. You have a lot of uh, you have a lot of ego. Too big for your britches, right? Um, when kids would act up, or you would you'd like wise off to your parents or something like, oh, he's getting too big for his britches, right? You're getting too much hubris. So hubris is like an invitation to be knocked down a peg by spirit. Spirit like, oh, okay, you haven't learned that lesson yet. It's time. This is where the uh, wet fish slap comes in handy. Yeah, your ego's too big to fit your pants. Yeah, yeah, it's funny. There was somebody in my life when I was in high school who had a pretty big ego, and we used to joke that his ego had to ride shotgun when he was driving because it didn't fit in the driver's seat with him. But yeah, so it's your ego. Your ego has grown so big it doesn't fit in your pants anymore. It's pretty funny. But that's pucker brush, big for your britches. Lots of stuff they say in Maine, and I'm not even from the coast. I'm from I'm from sort of southern central Maine. Um, uh, People from the coast, my sister-in-law's family are all lobstermen. Not all, but her dad and her brothers and her niece and like they're lobstermen, and it's almost like sometimes particularly with her dad when he was still alive, it was like he spoke a different language almost, like his accent was so thick and the expressions that he used were I could figure out what he was talking about, but I had to listen very carefully, and I'm from the same state. It's pretty funny. Yeah, but Maine has different accents, so farmers talk different than fishermen, generally speaking, and then of course we have people who I grew up in the Lewiston, Auburn area, and when I was growing up, there were a lot of, there still are a lot of people of French Canadian descent, but you would hear French, batten down the hatches. Yes. Yeah, I think that's a seagoing term, right? Um, uh, there are you would hear a lot of French spoken. In fact, there used to be in the center of the town that I lived in, there used to be a sign that says, you can turn right on red after yielding, and that used to be in both English and French. Not anymore. It's just in English now. But so anyway, I am getting very close to having to wrap up for the day, my friends. This has been a great live. Lots of great contributions, and I realize I always go off on different tangents, but I think that's okay. It's my ADHD. um oh, my Facebook link, yeah, absolutely. My Facebook is you can find me, John Moore, Shamanic Practitioner, but it may be easier if you go to my website, which is Maine Shaman, MaineShaman.com. Kind of easier if you go there, because there at the bottom of every page are links to all of my social media. So you can find my Facebook page, and you can find my YouTube channel. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. I'm on YouTube Live right now, while I'm on TikTok Live, and while I'm on Facebook Live, and while I'm on X Live, and um, I think I'm on Instagram. Instagram's challenging to get on live, but I'm on all kind, and I'm on Twitch as well, but not a whole lot, just on these. But yeah, you can find all of my yeah. There's lots of John Moores. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I have a very common name. Um, I had to, like I used to write a column for the Good Men Project, which is a really great publication. It just was a lot for me to write a column every single week for it, so I kind of stopped doing that. You can still find the columns. But there was another John Moore already on the platform, so I had to use my middle initial. So my middle initial is D. So all of my articles are under John D. Moore, and all of the other John Moore, who was there first, so he got just John Moore. So um, when I've written stuff, I generally will use my middle name or as well, just so there's not confusion with other John Moores out there. And if I don't have a lot of spiritual stuff published out there yet. I wrote a chapter of a book last year, and I self-published a little spiritual exercise manual and stuff. But my Amazon author page, they're constantly filling that with other people's books, other people named John Moore. Like if you go there, it'll be like, John Moore wrote My Dog Spot and I, and I'm like, no, I didn't. And I have to like go in and edit that. I don't know why, like they can't figure out me from other authors named John Moore, but very often they attribute stuff to me that is not mine. So oh my gosh, thank you. You're so likable, John. You are so likable. You are so likable. And by the way, it's not just me. My kids, Brienne is somebody that I know like in real life, not just online. Like our kids go to school together. Our kids are graduating from high school together this year. Can you imagine that? That's unbelievable. But thank you so much. And the feeling is very mutual. And my kids love you too. They I talk about your daughter and stuff quite a bit. Oh my gosh, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It's pretty helpful. It's helpful to have an audience. Like it's helpful to have you guys contributing. So, that's a big part of what I do and why I do these now. I'm doing these multiple times a week. Um, Now that I mean, it seems weird to say this, but now that I'm single, I'm recently single, and so I have a lot more. And I'm not casting that out there to try to get a date. I'm really not. I'm happy. I'm fine. But I have more free time that I'm not dating. So at the moment, so I'm doing these multiple times a week. If you're interested, so um, definitely hope to catch you again. Um, you are very, very welcome. Very welcome. Always a pleasure. So, I'm gonna wrap up. Got to start my day. Got to go. Got to go make the pickles. I'm literally maybe today gonna make some pickles. So, um, that's not what I do. Not for money. I'm just for my own. Like, put some pickles away. But I got to go make that cheddar. If you know what I mean. Make the dollar bills. Pay the rent. Um, my love to you all, and when I say that, I mean that. Spiritual love is just complete, full acceptance, and I love you just as you are. You are perfect, whole, and complete beings, and I wish you in union with spirit. I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. So I love you in union with spirit, and I hope to see all of you very, very soon. Take care, and we'll talk to you again. I'm going to do another one of these probably Friday morning if you're interested. So